So a lot of people call me and ask how long their divorce is going to take. That depends on the parties. A lot of times, divorce is very emotional. And unfortunately, the easiest decision to make is to make no decision. So if your spouse can't make decisions because they're emotional or because they're just being non-cooperative, it's going to take quite a while to get through a divorce. So the quickest that you can be legally divorced is 6 months and a day after your spouse is served with their divorce papers. So you can still finish your divorce before that 6-month period. However, the divorce will not be legal until 6 months and a day afterwards. So we can work out with your spouse an agreement that the two of you sign. We present it to a judge who signs it, and you will have a binding divorce. And that can happen within weeks of filing for divorce. When parties can't agree, divorces can take a long time. I have certain cases that will go on for 3 or 4 years, and it's not because the parties can't agree on the big things, but it's the small things like the furniture or family heirlooms. Sometimes you have one spouse who doesn't really want something, they just want it to upset their spouse, and they will spend thousands of dollars in attorney's fees just to fight over things that are worth hundreds of dollars. So the quicker divorces tend to be the ones where the parties have been separated for quite a while, or at least emotionally separated, and they have gotten through the emotions of getting through a divorce, and they come together and make agreements and work fairly with each other. Legally, the shortest that a divorce is going to be is 6 months and a day after your spouse is served. However, depending on how well the two of you can agree or do not agree, it can take 5, 6, 7 years or more. The steps of divorce start with filing divorce paperwork. There are several forms that must be filled out and must be filled out correctly and filed with the court. I have a lot of people call up my office very frustrated because they've tried to present their paperwork 3 or 4 times and it's rejected by the court each time. We'll work on filing your paperwork correctly. Once your divorce paperwork has been accepted by the courts and stamped and returned to you, the second step is serving your spouse. Your spouse needs to be served the paperwork in person by somebody over the age of 18 who is not you. Once your spouse has been served, that's where we work on negotiations. We'll go ahead and call your spouse and let them know that we represent you, and we will try to negotiate terms of the divorce. Obviously, the most important to most people in a divorce is child custody, child visitation. We will try to work out some sort of a visitation schedule with the courts. Now, if you and your spouse can't agree on certain issues, then you need to file what's called a request for order, or RFO. In that request for order, you're asking the judge to do something for you. The most common RFOs are for child custody, child visitation, and support issues. However, they can be things such as if your house is currently up for sale, is asking the court to order that the proceeds of the sale of the house go into escrow. Sometimes your house may be up for sale, and we would go and file a request for order asking the judge to order that the proceeds of the sale go into a trust account so that your spouse can't take more money than they're entitled to. Once the courts have set up temporary orders, then that's when the parties proceed to try and negotiate permanent orders and to finish the divorce. That's called a marriage settlement agreement or a judgment. After getting temporary orders, we then at that point try and finish the divorce amicably between the parties. Oftentimes that just isn't going to happen. So what would happen at that point, this would proceed to trial. We would notify the courts that we were unable to come to an agreement on certain issues and ask the court for a trial on the issues, and then the case goes to trial and a judge decides. To proceed with your divorce, you're going to need to get a lot of records together for your attorney. These records include bank statements, retirement account statements, any investment accounts that you have, titles to cars, Debt statements, credit card statements. The courts want a financial picture of everything that you and your spouse own. Getting all the records together that you'll need for a divorce is oftentimes overwhelming. That's where we'll help you out. We can make this process very simple. We'll help you on knowing which documents you need and when, and then we can help decide which documents to provide and how to get the best outcome for you in your divorce with those documents. People will call me and ask about mediation. Mediation in the state of California is generally done privately with a mediator who represents neither party. I have people call me after going to mediation and they're very frustrated. It becomes evident to them that the mediator is there to get an agreement more than to have things work out fairly. So ultimately, if one party is more stubborn or being a bully, the mediator will try and really squeeze the person who's more reasonable, and they end up with a lesser deal and reject mediation. I will regularly have people call and ask if they should go to mediation before hiring an attorney. The problem with mediation is the mediator doesn't represent either party and is not looking out for your best interest. When you hire an attorney, the attorney is there to represent you and to fight for your interests. So rather than mediation, what happens when you have an attorney is that you negotiate the case, whether that's with your spouse who doesn't have an attorney or with your spouse's attorney. In most cases, negotiations will handle more than half of the issues in your divorce. And so working to negotiate, but having an attorney who's willing to fight for you and your rights and who understands what your rights are is in your best interest. So if you have any questions about what forms need to be filed, how long your divorce is going to take, or how to negotiate it, go ahead, give us a call at Schank Family Law, and we will get you through this process.